Hello, my dear postgraduate students. We will continue our lessons through video conference till the end of our this term. So I will just start with a new subject today, especially the Irish novel before 1800. Our title is The Novel Before 1800. So, uses of romance first come across to our eyes. When we speak of the people, we ought carefully to make distinction between Irish and Irish, the language and the people in a way. The voice is not that of stage Irishman committing a blunder, but a cosmopolitan Englishman in William Cognos's novel, The History of Jack Connor. He continues, that is, we ought to regard the Protestants of Ireland as ourselves, because in fact they are our brethren and our children, in a way brothers like that. And so to manage the poor natives who are mostly Baptists, that by clemency and good usage we may wean them from ill habits and make them faithful and useful subjects. So they took their subjects from the past, from their country, of course. Use of this adjective, Irish, clearly required distinction or distinctions. There may be a huge gap between Irish and Irish, but none between Irish and English. So English is left away. Irish Protestants are different from poor Irish natives, but essentially the same as the English speaker of Cognos text. Acts of positioning, literary and geographical, of readers as well as characters are crucial to 18th century Irish fiction. Often those acts are complicated by the fact that they are also, as in the present instance, silently redrawing earlier demarcations, correcting previous distinctions between ourselves and them. In this sense, ourselves are the Irish people, them is English people. Most 18th century Irish fiction was produced by Irish Protestants, so pay attention. First Irish fiction was produced by Irish Protestants, religious men in a way, either the descendants of early Norman settlers, the Old English as you can all see, or more recent arrivals. Yet the identity such writers shared determined neither their relationships with native culture, which range from the intimate to the remote, nor the strength of their attachment to the English mainland. Novelists such as Chagnon and Thomas Emery self-consciously deployed Irish settings and subject matter. So in England, in the UK, some British authors also dealt with some Irish settings in their works and subject matter. But there were also Irish novelists, among them Francis Sheridan and Oliver Goldsmith. They were all became, especially Oliver Goldsmith, became so well known in the UK. He was originally from Ireland, who settled in England and whose fiction is apparently unmarked by their origins. The ourselves to which such writers belonged being a general one of novelists writing in English. So those Irish writers, started to write in English rather than Irish, because during that time England was, especially the British novel, was improving so much compared to Irish novel. It is also important to consider that Irishness, however defined, can have effects beyond subject matter, influencing the construction, devices, and projected readers of fiction. That many Irish novels were published initially in London, as we have told in our previous lessons, that you can easily understand that those Irish writers couldn't find any publishers, for example, in their country, so they preferred much improved, much developed publishers in London as well. So that many Irish novels were published initially at the start in London and only subsequently in Dublin. Some suggest Irish writers wanted to reach a larger audience than Ireland alone could provide. Conversely, the fact that the British Copyright Act of 1709, just pay attention to the date, to the year as well, British Copyright Act, had never applied to Ireland, gave Irish publishers the opportunity to reprint for the Irish market popular English works in pirated editions. Yet in the latter part of the 18th century, a distinctive indigenous reading public was increasingly recognized not only through original publication in Dublin of Irish fiction, but also in the way reprints directly addressed Irish audience or made silent textual changes so as to appeal to their tastes. So in this sentence, in short, we can easily say that British publishers, with the British Copyright Act, didn't give any rights to the Irish publishers to publish their native authors' works. Two very early fictions, the anonymous Virtue Rewarded or The Irish Princess, 1693, and Sarah Butler's Irish Tales or Instructive Histories for the Conduct of Life, 1716, demonstrate the contrasting effects on fictional form of different understandings of Irishness. Both of these brief fictions are set in Ireland and have important romance elements. Their plots unfold against the background of war, and each tells in elevated language the story of a love affair. The texts nonetheless differ considerably in that Virtue Rewarded excludes the natives, the wild Irish, from its rarefied romance world, whereas Irish Tales equates romance civility with the riches of the ancient Gaelic past. So the subjects are taken from Gaelic past. Virtue Rewarded is set in the Midland town of Clonmel during the Williamite Wars. The hero, a minor European prince fighting for William, falls in love with a local girl, marrying them. So this is a romance in a way, as you can easily understand from your past English novel lessons, that romance was a very important thing for the development of British novel as well. It all started with romance, first of all. The class difference between the two causes the prince to hope that he can seduce rather than marry. Just keep a comparison between this novel, Virtue Rewarded, and also Virtue Rewarded of Pamela, written by Samuel. So the same subject are easily seen between those Richardson novel Pamela and Virtue Rewarded. The same subject, seduction, for example, rather than marrying or marriage. The heroine, but eventually he recognized the heroine's virtue and they marry. As befits characters in romance, Marinda and the prince share wit and breeding. They also share a commitment to Protestant values as represented by King William. The native Irish are casually evoked to mark the limits of this world, as when a young man's appearance and civility are seen as so superior to other young men that they did look like our wild Irish to him. Or the natives actively threaten the protagonists, as when the heroine leaves the safety of colonel, and is attacked by Irish-speaking referees. The wild Irish and Irish speakers appear briefly only to emphasize their unsuitability for the Romance world the protagonists share. This exclusion is given added resonance by the use in Virtue Rewarded of the resources of Gaelic culture. Among the Romance's interpolations is one from an extant Irish chronicle of Chuanisha, the only child of Macuin, king of Munster, whose chastity is wrongly suspected. Significantly, this interpolation is attached not to a character but to a place, a fountain just outside Clonmel, instrumental, according to the chronicle, in the vindication of the princess. In retelling the story, Virtue Rewarded draws on the Gaelic tradition of Dinishenshas, well, I am sure I have pronounced correctly, that is the lore of places that turns landscape into narrative and perpetuates in the present the culture of the past. In Virtue Rewarded, however, the story is totally disconnected from a contemporary Gaelic culture which is seen as wild and lawless. Moreover, the structural position of the tale, specifically its relation to other interpolations, one of which deals circumstantially with human sacrifice in Peru, reinforces the impression of dislocated exotica rather than, as in the Gaelic tradition, a mark of intimate way landscape enters culture. Very little is known about Sarah Butler, the author of Irish Tales, but it is possible she was connected to the Ormond Butlers, an Old English family with both Protestant and Roman Catholic branches. Irish Tales is set in the ancient kingdom of Ireland, at a time when the Milesian kings are fighting off Danish invaders. It tells of the unhappy love affair of Dunflaith, daughter of the king of Meath, and Murdo, son of Brian Boru, who was eventually to become High King and defeat the Danes at the Battle of Clontarf, 1014. So, as you can easily imagine that time goes back so far. The episodes listed on the little title page, The Banished Prince, The Power of Beauty, prepare the reader for a romance, and as the polemical preface makes clear, one with a political purpose. Butler prints the charge that the language of her characters is too passionate and elegant for the Irish, and unsuitable for so rude and illiterate a people, by declaring that now the Irish are under a yoke of bondage, but that once the country was one of the principal nations in Europe for piety and learning, having formerly been so holy that it was termed the Island of Saints.